Guys, I feel a little thrown off. I've been away from the parish office for a couple weeks. I gotta have a week with family, which is mainly with my nephews who live here in Glendale. My oldest sister has 7 kids, and the oldest is 15. Youngest is coming up on 2 years. So it's so great. I haven't gotten to spend a lot of time with them, so it was mainly just playing games, which I have to admit was really depressing. Because when you play video games, it doesn't matter if they're 5 years old. They just beat me. I hate to lose, guys. I'm a little competitive, and I got destroyed repeatedly, even on little things like Tetris. Anyways. And then the next week, I got to be on retreat. Every year, by canon law, every priest is expected and required to go on a retreat. At least 5 days, just to regroup and be with the Lord. To remember that what we do, we have nothing to give if we're not receiving. So I got to do my annual retreat. And it was a little different than what I normally do. I normally do a silent 8 days of silence with just one director that I talk to each day. And it's kind of very individual. And it's always been a huge gift. This is a little different. I went with a group of 15 priests and from all over the States, and we were given kind of these talks and kind of spiritual workshop of sorts by a gentleman named Bob Schutz, a lady named Sister Miriam James, and a few others on their small team. And they're very experienced in working with priests. They reminded me of something that one of my friends taught me. I was hanging out with one of my friends, and every time that they would end up talking about priests, and any time that there was a priest, they would mention oh, this priest did this really silly thing, or this was kind of a weird thing that this priest did. Priests have done silly things, and I'm not just talking about bad things. I'm just talking about silly things. And my friend just laughs, and she goes, "Oh well, P-A-P-T." And then everyone in the room starts laughing. I was like, wait, sorry, what just happened? I heard a priest did a silly thing, but then P-A-P-T, what was that? And why did everyone laugh? And oh, Father, P-A-P-T means priests are people too. Friends, part of what that means is that we have hurts. We have joys and sorrows. We have hopes and shame. And on this retreat, it was just a time we were kind of helped to just acknowledge that. The very first day of retreat, Sister Miriam James, who I could go on and on about her. I'm a huge fan. You can look her up on YouTube. Amazing, amazing woman. Quite a story she's been on. But she said to us the first day, a priest once asked me, what is the biggest danger for a priest? And she says, I listed off a few things. He's like, no, not that. No, not that. What's the biggest danger for a priest? And maybe you're imagining different things in your own head. After she listed off a bunch of things, the priest said, no. She said, I give up. What's the biggest danger for a priest? And this priest told her, the biggest danger for a priest is hardness of heart. I think that's true for all of us. Hardness of heart can sometimes look cold, merciless, no compassion. But hardness of heart can also look aloof, distant. Hardness of heart can look joyful and giddy and superficial. And this was interesting to ponder. And it comes to my mind today when I hear Jesus say, I came so that they might have life and have it more abundantly. Life, in my mind, is the opposite of that hardness. When parts of us go numb or shut down or suppressed, we lack life. That's where even in good times, sometimes we feel miserable. Everything's going great in my life, and I feel awful. We all have seasons of life. So there's other seasons where things are terrible. Maybe this has happened to you, or you've seen others who are going through hellish circumstances and yet seem happy. Life, this abundant life, I think, is something that Jesus deeply desires for us. That's what I hear when he says, I came so that they might have life and have it more abundantly. I hear he wants this so bad for you. This Easter was my first time as a pastor getting to do the what we call the Triduum. There's the Holy Thursday where the priest washes the feet of 12 people. On Good Friday, there's the intense recounting of the Lord's Passion. The priest begins the liturgy by just lying in silence on the floor, face down, reminding us of how all of us are meant to enter into the suffering of Christ. Easter, I got to baptize all these kids and confirm them. It was such a special gift for me. And my one big takeaway was, if we could see ourselves the way Jesus sees us, it would change everything. Because for him to bend down and humiliate himself, washing the feet of his apostles, something that not even Jewish slaves could do, only Gentile, non-religious slaves were forced to do. Jesus bends down and does that for these people, for these men who are weak. They don't always get along. They're really confused a lot of times. Some of them are jerks, because this is before the Pentecost. Holy Spirit came to help out. And then he suffered on the cross, this horrific, hellish experience. And he didn't have to do any of these things. But we're told that Christ suffered for you. By his wounds you are healed. He did this for no other reason than to pay the consequences of any and all sin. The Catechism says that he went through his passion and resurrection for all and for each. God doesn't just love you, he's for you. Okay, so I'm thinking in that context, I came so that they might have life and have it more abundantly. He's literally dying for you to have this life within you. The Paschal candle, I can't get enough of this thing. It's so special in my heart for a lot of different reasons. But one of which is this candle burns away. It's a symbol of Christ who gives light and warmth to a world that needs it. But it comes at a cost. It spends himself. This wax candle from last year, I put it next to it, and last year's candle was this tall when it started out a year ago, and now it's this tall. That's just a little sign of how he spends himself. He has this deep longing. Jesus is longing, but Jesus isn't the only one who desires that we be fully alive. Here's what one person on this retreat said: if we listen to our own hearts, we will discover we desire fulfillment just as passionately. There's an author, a gentleman who works with a lot of people, helping them come to discover life in Christ. And there's this little quote from John Elridge who says, "There is a secret set within each of our hearts. This secret remains hidden for the most part in the deepest selves. It is the desire for life as it was meant to be." Do you hear the tension? Life as it was meant to be. All of us experience at some point, different seasons, different levels of intensity, that life isn't quite what my heart says it should be. There's hurt, there's disappointments, there's confusion, doubts, real evil, mixed with joys. Our hearts, if we pay close attention, we'll discover in the deep secret of our heart, there's a desire for life as it was meant to be. Today's psalm was Psalm 23, "The Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want." And I've always wrestled with that wording, because I want a lot of things. I want things to go smoothly in the parish finances. I want an understanding, a deeper understanding of my faith, so I want to be a better preacher, and I want to be more prepared, and I want to not ever, lead people astray by accident. I want to be a faithful priest. I want my family to be healthy and happy. I want a lot of things. And it feels like there's a tension. Jesus is my shepherd. There's nothing well, hold on, Jesus. I don't want you to get rid of these things. These are important to me. So then I've thought, okay, well, maybe want, it's an old English expression of the things that I don't have, my needs. So when I'm with Jesus, I won't need anything. He's going to provide all these things. Both of these are kind of true, actually. Jesus deeply longs for, he desires that we might have life in abundance. But what is desire, if not precisely an ache of the heart for what I don't have? Isn't this beautiful to think? We all have desires, and sometimes our desires can make us really happy. Sometimes they can make us sad because we don't have them. But all desire, everything I want, is precisely what I don't have, or I don't have as completely as I want, as I need, as I hope. Friends, hardness of heart happens when we get overwhelmed by the pain of our longings. When we pay attention to our desires, it can be unnerving. Because I'm not just talking about, I want the summer to not come, or I want to have a meal, or even I want better friends, or I want whatever. If you really get down into the deepest desires, you have a desire for love, communion, a desire for closeness with God. And when you start to notice what you lack, it's unnerving. It can be terrifying. And it's much easier for us to go, whoop, we're just not going to go there. I'm going to live on, I want the world to be better. I want my country. I'm just going to focus on the things that I can control or complain about. But to have life, the kind of life that keeps us going in good times and in bad, it's something different. But it might be simpler than we realize. St. Thomas Aquinas was a great medieval philosopher, theologian, and a saint. A simple, beautiful soul. And he's the most intellectual of writers you could ever come across, but I believe he was also the most deep, intimate lover. And he said that charity, the theological virtue of charity, we think of faith, hope, and charity, also known as love. He said charity, the theological virtue, is friendship with God. And you might think, well, that's kind of wishy-washy, isn't it? There's a YouTube video that's called, it's like this little awkward band playing in the 90s, and it's like, Jesus is my friend, Jesus is my friend, and it's super pathetic and annoying. So why is this medieval theologian, a robust intellect, saying theological virtue of charity can be summarized in friendship? Maybe one way, yesterday we had 120 young people receive the sacrament of confirmation and First Communion. It was awesome. And Father John Muir came, represented Bishop Dole, and Father John is the Vicar General. He's the right-hand man of the bishop. He's a big deal, but a great guy. And he said in his homily, friendship can be summarized as simple as, with your friends you share life, you share time, and you share the secrets of your heart. Anyone who's had that kind of friend knows it's special. And most people who have had a friend that they could share life, time, and the secrets of their hearts with have also lost friends. But friendship with God, if you invest sharing your life, think like when you plan, what am I going to do with my life today? You share that with Jesus. If you set aside time to just be with Jesus like you're doing right now, it does something to us. When we share the secrets of our heart, we're freed from hardness of heart. And the offertory hymn we're going to have today is a familiar tune, Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life. I love that little refrain. I have a lot of wants, a lot of desires. And underneath every desire, even the bad ones and superficial and the sinful, underneath all desire are holy desires for love, communion. Shepherd me, Jesus, you can ask him today in the next amount of time that's left in this mass, that you are here giving God your time. Ask for that grace to be shepherded beyond all your wants and beyond all your fears of going there, even to go into the sort of death, the darkness, the emptiness in your hearts. What is the longings of your deepest self, so that you can experience his life. That's the only way to really come alive in the Spirit. And friends, the good news is what Psalm 23 goes on to say later, in the second to last verse, which you're going to hear sung in this hymn. The last verse says something like, you have set a banquet for me in the sight of my enemies. My enemies are anxiety, fear, stress, anger, resentment, hurt, pain. And the Lord wants to set a banquet to provide a scrumptious meal for your soul, to give you life even in the sight of these awful things of life. No matter what season of life you're in, good and bad, he wants to provide. And then it says, he fills my cup and it overflows. I forget how your translation of the Bible might say it, but in this hymn, it words it like this. You have set me a banquet of love in the face of hatred, crowning me with love beyond my power to hold. Jesus has love to offer you that is the life we were meant for. And his desire isn't half-hearted for you. What he desires is this love that it's even beyond your ability to hold it. That's why what we're made for, holiness of life, is to be alive in the Spirit. It's the kind of person we're supposed to become, is the kind of person that's just enveloped in this love, so that in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, we're able to experience love and give love. Because our hearts have remained supple, moldable, compassionate, like friends of God, rejoicing in what brings him joy and feeling pain when he feels pain, as if his joys are our joys or our accomplishments. To suffer with compassion as if it was our own suffering we see in him and in our neighbor. Friends, Jesus desires us to be fully alive, but let's keep it simple. Just let's continue today to make a little resolve today, just today, to share life, time, and the secrets of our heart with our risen Lord.